We also, other members are Rep. Nisihimoto and Rep. Ward, and we might have other members who might be joining us as well who are interested in this topic. So we're here today because the House passed H.R. 10 earlier this year, which established a working group to oversee the DHHL Homeland's execution of funds appropriated pursuant to Act 279 to address the beneficiary waiting list. So within H.R. 10, it does set out what we are trying to accomplish. I think our end goal is to give a report to the legislature before the next legislative session. I think some of the report is to include how we're leveraging and maximizing the $600 million, alternative financing mechanism for beneficiaries and developers, alternative housing development options, and also looking into how the expenditures are going throughout for DHHL. So I think I would like to thank the department for all of their work thus far. I think they've been very cooperative. I think we wanted to have a public meeting a little earlier, but I think we wanted to make sure we had first a chair of the DHHL first, and so I think we got that in place, and we wanted to give him some time to figure out what direction he wanted to go towards, and I think we're close to that, but I think we want the public to know that we have been in constant communication with the department to understand what their priorities are and where they have been going with a lot of the $600 million. So I think first up we're going to have Kali Watson come up, chair of DHHL, to give us an overview of what his vision is, and I think we have some detailed overview of the projects that you're working on. So Kali, you want to join us? And Kali, I don't know if you want to introduce anyone from your team before you begin.
Sure. Good morning, Representative Hashimoto, Representative Tarnas, Representative Holt, and
the guy who's late. He was.
Representative Ward. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to testify and give you an update. I'd also like to introduce members of my staff. We have my executive assistant, Richard Holt, along with our commissioner, Russell Kaupu, as well as our main guy that's kind of heading up this development coordination, Stuart Matsunaga. And yeah, first of all, I guess I'll give an overview, and then we can go into the details of the specific projects. We are kind of moving along on implementing the projects that were identified in the strategic plan and adopted by the commission back in November, reviewed by the legislature. In looking at those projects, we not only wanted to move those along, but the prior administration put out an RFP. There were some projects that we vetted and felt fits in with what we're trying to accomplish, which is try and get as many people off the waiting list as possible. And so there's a couple more projects that we'd like to share with you today. We also, just for your information, this past Monday, we put out another RFP, and again, looking at projects that might make sense to us that are off of Hawaiian homelands that involve non-DHHL lands. Granted, we have over 200,000 acres of land, but in many cases, these are lands that are in somewhat isolated, a little bit of infrastructure, very costly to develop, and not necessarily attractive or desirable for our beneficiaries. So to deal with that, we put out another RFP. And I'm kind of excited about that one because we've gotten a pretty good response. There is a timeline where we hope to not only acquire new lands, from just acquisition of new lands that we would develop by putting those out for development, but also exploring and vetting proposals which not only include non-DHHL lands, but also development by developers. rather than we take on that onerous task and somewhat timely and costly. I think it's very important for us to bring in developers, especially with desirable lands in good locations that may have infrastructure and utilities readily available versus us trying to develop them and then move forward. So that we're taking a look at. We're also exploring, as you know, Representative Hashimoto, alternative ways of financing, where it's not to use up the $600 million just for development, but more importantly, servicing and putting their beneficiaries in a position where they can better afford to participate in the award process. We did recently have a dedication on Maui, which you attended, and several others, in which we are exploring a different approach to development, whereby we're creating other categories other than just a turnkey approach. I think I shared this with you folks previously, where not only do we do the turnkey, but let me turn this thing off here. But we also look at providing some gap financing, whereas to better qualify people that wouldn't otherwise qualify for the $400,000 mortgage. So we use part of the $600 million to subsidize or reduce the interest costs, whereby more of the almost I would characterize them not only gap, but more like the workforce type entities or people on our wait list that would then be able to qualify for homestead. And then again, leveraging the $600 million, we're very excited about replicating the approach we use on the Ho'olima project, using tax credits with options to purchase. That's somewhat limited resource, but I think it's very important that we try to access that using the tax credits, using the rental housing revolving fund, especially now that you guys have funded it to a significant extent. So I think if we can leverage and use and access those funds, including the DERF, as well as the bonds. And we're also looking at alternative source of bond financing, as you are aware, and we're looking at recycling existing bonds, whereby we can use that to finance a lot of the construction costs up front, and then the subsequent takeout by our beneficiaries when we do a conversion into the rental or ownership option. So these are some of the things that we're looking at, and to give you a general overview of how we're kind of moving forward. So at this time, I'd like to turn this over to Stuart, who has prepared a matrix for you of the different projects, as well as the anticipated expenditures or budget items that we've allocated to the different projects, and thereby in meeting your guys' mandate that we encumber these funds in a timely fashion. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that we're actually beyond what we need to get, and so we're actually going to try and get authorization to
somebody really wants you.
Sounds like someone's shooting at you.
I know. So we'll let me just turn it over to Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, for being here.
Aloha, Chair Hashimoto and members of the HR 10 committee. It's really been a pleasure working with committee members over the last several months. And in that process, I've also learned a lot, and it's been very helpful based on the comments that we have received, and I think it's been incorporated into the projects, and so I just wanted to mahalo the committee members for that. Just for the record, I'm Stuart Matsunaga. I'm the Acting Administrator for Land Development Division. I have the privilege of coming before you, but these projects that are listed here on the paper really takes an entire village to bring forward these projects, to negotiate, to contract, and to encumber the funds. So I'm here, but there's a lot of staff back at the office who are responsible for many parts of this. And so with that, I'll just start up at the top with the villages of La'iopoa. So at La'iopoa, in order for us to settle that area, we do need water. So the first two projects are off-site water development projects to acquire different sites. The first one is with Kamehameha Schools. We're continuing negotiations with KS as well as with the County of Hawaii Department of Water Supply. We're currently conducting a survey and appraisal of a proposed site on the KS lands. Second one is Gianulius site. It's a private landowner. And recently, we received a letter of intent from the owners, $9.2 million, and we have accepted that letter of intent, and the seller is currently setting up escrow and fees. Potentially, we can use also lead CIP from Act 88. There's a proviso for funding there, and so that would be part of our Purpose 1 lot development. And what that would do is it would free up Act 279 funds for fiscal year 24 and beyond. Lanai, we have a consultant selected. This is for Lanai residence lots off-site infrastructure. We've been coordinating with Pulama Lanai on this and looking at the infrastructure capacity for sewer, water, and also with respect to drainage. So we're continuing to negotiate those, the scope of work and fees for that project. Pu'unani Homestead subdivision on Maui, and mahalo Rep. Hashimoto for attending that ground blessing. That work is being kicked off. It's 17.171 million. So those funds have been encumbered. As Chair mentioned, you know, the 137 turnkey homes and 24 improved vacant lots may be revised. And so we're taking a look at various affordability type of options there and working with Dowling Company. The Pu'unani Homestead subdivision offsite water tank is to support the storage requirements in the Pu'unani Homestead subdivision. The target date for construction bidding is in summer 2023. We have encumbered those funds in as part of the development agreement with Dowling Company. Okay. Leali'i Village 1B offsite water. Where we are is we're finalizing the EA and the finding of no significant impact planned for July 2023. And after that, then we propose to prepare an RFP or an RFQ to wrap around the offsite water requirements, the highway improvements, as well as the on-site subdivision improvements. And I do want to take a little time to also mahalo the legislature for providing $9 million in CIP funds for the highway improvements for this project. Honokowai Subsistence Ag Phase 1 would provide 50 subsistence ag lots. We currently have a engineering design contract for $1.47 million encumbered. We're doing a lot of coordination with the County of Maui and with a private developer to the north, Pulelehua. And so this one is great because we have a lot of cost sharing planned with the county and with Pulelehua to provide some backbone infrastructure that crosses through Hawaiian homelands. So we're excited about that one. Kaupea Phase 2, we did an acquisition with HHFDC, 8.25 million, was encumbered in December 2022, and the acquisition is completed. So what we have done since then is we have put out a development agreement, RFP. We have 3 proposals received at the end of April, and we're going through the RFP review process right now. Okay. Second page, starting with East Kapolei 2 backbone infrastructure. So this project, we actually encumbered a design contract with our DHHL trust fund. There's a few expenses that are being paid for under Act 227. The direction we're going in right now is to incorporate the backbone infrastructure with East Kapolei 2D, E, and F. And then to put out an RFP for that development. We're prepping that up for a no later than summer 2023 issuance. So East Kapolei 2A and 2E would be incorporated in that singular RFQ. Hanapepe residence lots Phase 2 would be construction of 82 new lots. This construction would provide the grading, roads, water, sewer lines, drainage, etc. We're continuing to work with the county for approvals and title sheet approvals, so that chair should be coming to you shortly, and we're planning groundbreaking in summer of 2023. And that contract is for $17.8 million. Okay, land and project acquisition. This one is a professional services contract with Bowers and Kubota Consulting. They are providing project management support, including feasibility studies, survey, and appraisal for Act 279 projects. Under land and project acquisition, the commission had budgeted 33.5. This is the one that we had put out an RFP in late part of November 2022. We had 7 offers submitted, and the net result on that is that we've accepted 4 of those proposals. The first one, Proposal A, is Eva Villages, Haseko. The acquisition cost is over $17 million, and NAHASDA funding will be used for that acquisition. The development portion, $20 million, will be provided by Act 279, and the acquisition and development agreement is in process right now. Proposal B is the Wailuku single-family residences by DDC 2 LLC, that's Dowling Company. So we are in the execution phase for both the acquisition and development, totaling $43.4 million. We're expecting to bring that to the chair's desk this week for execution. So what that means is that we are able to submit it to DAGS for certification by June 30th. Proposal C is Kamana by Avalon Development. So we've accepted the acquisition, and that has been that sale has been closed. and we're currently land banking that project because Honomu, 700 acres plus, is our current priority area for development. On the third page, proposal D is Wai'ehu Mauka. This project totals 95 million, and we're currently in the development agreement review process. We have some comments from Deputy AG, and so we're gonna incorporate that, and we're gonna really try to get this executed before June 30th, 2023. We've had some discussions with Budget and Finance because if we do actually get this contract to DAGS for certification, we will need an additional $21 million. DAGS is stating to us that they prefer that we hold off an additional allotment until July 1. I don't know all of the budget details on that, and so we're you know, if we encumber the 95 million, we will exceed our $172 million, which is currently allotted for this year, and which was the target for this fiscal year. If we can get proposal D to contract, then we would be at 193 million, which requires an additional $21 million to be released by Budget and Finance and the governor. So that concludes the discussion on the progress.
So Stuart, just to be clear, maybe you can just give us for the public's, edification, or what is the numbers we're looking at? So what's encumbered, what's in process?
Okay. So starting from the left side, the Act 279 budget approved by the Hawaiian Homes Commission back in August of 2022 was 172.75 million. Okay. We did an amendment with the commission at the end of December. However, the numbers, the 172,750,000 did not change. It was just redistributing the funds amongst projects. Okay. So what we have in process right now, and I want to just skip over that proposed June 2023 budget amendment, but go to encumbrance in process, is the total currently is $138,574,844. That's in process. It's not quite there yet. We need to bring those contracts to execution and file it through our fiscal office to DAGS for certification. So that's in process. What we currently have encumbered is $53,734,150. That's currently encumbered under contracts, and you can see in the projects above which ones are actually encumbered. What we have in the last column before the status is our expenditures to date, which is $10,309,080. We're mindful that we have a 52.85 million limit on the expenditure per the maintenance of agreement.
So that expires on June 30th, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So while we would have liked to actually expended more, we know we have a cap on it that we need to stay under. And our key point is encumbering the funds by June 30th.
So in process, you think it's probably like around 190 million then, right? At
Yes.
this moment.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Members, questions? Just on maybe the list, and then we can go on to other stuff.
Just
Sure.
if I may.
Yep, Rep. Tarnas, go ahead.
Thanks. Just to follow up on a couple of different ones. I was just curious whether you've been able to make any progress on discussions with Commission on Water Resource Management on those North Kona wells. 'Cause I know that was a concern, that you're seeking to purchase a property in order to develop the wells, but there's been challenges getting the well permits approved. So we talked about this previously.
Right. So our planning office is leading the charge on the two water development projects. So they have had discussions with CWRM.
Okay.
I don't know the actual details of the outcome of those discussions, but I believe they'll be ongoing.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the location of these two wells, and actually three, if we develop two on the Kamehameha site, are in enough of outside the concerned area that seaworm wouldn't have a problem with these particular wells.
Okay.
So we're in good shape on that. So I don't anticipate any kind of objections relative to the use of these wells.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Rep. Ward.
This has been a good look at the trees. I have a question about the forest. How many will be taken off of the wait list, given what you've said? And I see these are lots. Does that mean there's no houses being built, or am I misreading your?
No, they include housing.
It includes housing.
But we also, with respect to the developers, like I had mentioned earlier, we want to kind of tweak that approach where the developers, granted, they'll do the turnkey, the LIHTC lots, but we also want to set aside a certain number of lots for participation by the homesteaders through the Habitat for Humanity. There's some that want to do the owner-builder type. So we'll set those aside. Obviously, the developer would prepare the lots for these individuals and probably provide a lot of assistance and guidance and maybe materials for them to facilitate the successful use of that approach.
So how much of the 28,000 on the wait list will be impacted?
Well,
many?
just on this one, if you look at the list, there's 1,953 lots that we're talking about, which in most cases include the vertical construction. Some are, infrastructure for subsistence ag lots. So that doesn't necessarily, although the lessee does have the option of putting a house on that subsistent ag lot. So we're kind of revising that too, in the sense that instead of awarding these 40 acres, like historically we did on Molokai, we're kind of reducing them to maybe 2 acres. So it truly is a subsistent type ag lot rather than a commercial venture. And by doing it that way, they can also put a house on that lot. So some of these areas, we're dealing with the subsistence. There's also the kuleana lots where there's no infrastructure, so it's like Kahiki Nui where, you're out there, we maybe put the road, but you're kind of on your own to get creative and sustain your living style. Those I'm not that excited about, so I kind of want to emphasize and focus in on these houses, and especially, as I mentioned earlier, we did put out an RFP last Monday. I want to try and get better lands for not necessarily better, but a lot more attractive, more lands that are located in key areas that be a lot more exciting and supported as well as acquired by us for our beneficiaries. Oahu is a big an area that we really want to emphasize because most of our beneficiaries are on this island. So we've been having discussions with several of the Li'i trusts, as well as other developers, as well as other landowners that are receptive to working with us, either as a joint development or doing the development or just selling us the land, or in some cases, actually donating land to us. So I'm excited. That will probably not really come together until maybe October of this year, but that would definitely have an impact on our list. And, again, subject to commission support and ratification, we may make, and I anticipate we will be making adjustments to this strategic plan. And again, we're going to need the entire $600 million. We're probably going to need more money. So
How much have you spent so far, actually? How much
well,
is committed?
like Stuart was explaining.
But I got confused because you said, well, we have a cap. Does $600 million have a cap on it?
Yeah, that. I'm gonna
If so,
explain the
why?
cap.
The expenditure cap is related to the maintenance of effort. So we were advised that we needed to keep our expenditure for this fiscal year under 52.85 million.
What's the logic of that? I mean, you got $600 million, and who's telling you can only spend $52 million a year encumbrance?
That's from
Who's-
the,
Who's saying that?
But that's budget and finance. That's,
Well, I did get a briefing from Mr. Matsunaga, so that's a different thing. Oh, Budget and Finance is saying that. Have you asked the governor if you could have a cap lifted on that? The point is, I
That-
think the governor's and the legislature's given this money, so as quickly as possible, it could be put out to get people off the wait list. So I'm confused when you say you got a cap. That means, well, you can't do a burn rate properly, or I'm just confused. We're decades behind, and we're saying we want to slow you guys down because we don't want to let you get the $600 million too quickly. That to me is contradictory.
No, I agree with you 100% there, Representative Ward. I too am looking at ways to expedite the process, the procurement, as well as some of the restrictions and pre-development activities that we got to do that really slow down development. We're exploring ways with the governor to move that along. I think in the next month you'll be pleasantly surprised at what the governor is proposing, which will allow us to do exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, we got a $400 million stadium project. We're not going to say, well, we can only do it so much per year. We're going to
I
say,
agree.
boom,
I
let's
agree.
get on with it. So I'm still a bit confused, but I could see how if the governor's got some movability. in
Yes,
this
he does.
regard, it
In
makes
fact, I met
sense.
with him yesterday and we discussed it. So we're just waiting for the Attorney General to give the green light. There's some issues with her, but once we get that resolved, we will be really expediting a lot of these projects. I'm excited about getting the responses back on our request for proposals on Monday. I think we'll, really accelerate not only these projects listed on our strategic plan, but there's going to be a lot of new projects that are, I think it's going to be a really exciting time for the program. I have no doubts we'll be able to expend the $600 million and, more importantly, leverage it in a way that maybe we can triple those funds. Some of these funds we're going to kind of recycle also. Whether it's a construction loan that gets paid off, bang, when the homesteaders, take out their own loans to pay off the construction loan, and then we can do other projects. I also like the idea of, with the legislature making more funds available for the rental housing revolving fund, the DERF fund, and we're also working with the feds as well as the counties. They got funds. So, there's all these different sources. Fortunately for the department, through our entitlement process, because of the trust lands, we can not necessarily bypass, but we can eliminate like the 2-1-H process, the rezoning.
But what's with the $21 million shortfall that Mr. Matsunaga mentioned?
Well, that's just on the authorization. So, but again,
Okay,
we're going
that's
to try
the
and
proce-
resolve
okay,
that.
The release process, okay.
yeah,
okay,
we're gonna try and
sort of the
resolve that.
same snarl.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is a, kind of a hiccup, but it's not insurmountable. We'll deal with it.
Okay, Chair, I have other questions, but I'll yield for now.
Members, any other questions? Senator, go ahead. Thanks for being here as well.
Just to start off, thank you to the chair of this House Working Group for permitting me to sit in on your meeting, Director Stewart. I guess to follow up on that, these maintenance of effort projections were put together prior to the beginning of the session, if I recall. we are nearing the end of the fiscal year. My understanding is that we are likely to lapse funds in other departments before the end of the fiscal year. So I guess to the representative's prior question, is that part of the discussion that's being had at the governor's office about whether the cap on the release of funds for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands might be lifted in lieu of likely some projected lapses in other departments?
I'm not aware of any other funds that might lapse. I do know
Well,
there's an
for
issue
example,
with
we
the
know that the
county.
Department of Education is not going to expend all the money that was appropriated to them in the fiscal year, and because and so I you know, I don't want to get this confused, because my understanding is that the maintenance of effort expires this year, and so there will not be the same restriction on your ability to spend from BNF, because we will no longer have this requirement at the, you know, once we begin the next fiscal year. But I do believe that other departments in state government will not be able to expend all of the money that was appropriated to them. There is some space potentially for you folks to go now instead of having to wait the extra however many weeks, which was what, you know, what I thought I heard in the prior question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that deadline, because the deadline I'm worried about is the June 30th, 2025. That's the one, I'm not really worried about it, but, you know, that's the one that's key to the expenditure of the 600 million. So that definitely is top on my mind. Regarding other departments and their situation, I'm, you know, not really too focused on
Well,
that.
I guess to go back to the bigger picture, you're in year one of the 3-year
Right.
requirement to spend on the money at 193 million,
Mhm.
which is what you're hoping to be able to encumber. You're about a third of the way there in the first year. So
Right.
tracking, so, you know, this $20 million difference does kind of make, it is significant.
Yeah.
Looking at it on a piece of paper. But
Right.
if for your development timeline and your organizational capacity, if you're saying, you know, the difference between now and June 30 is not as significant, then that's significant for us, or for me at least.
Yeah, as I said, the one, in fact, you know, that, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, we're still kind of, that third year of the 3-year, it's still not been fixed by the legislature. So we'll, again, be coming in to get it to the June 30th, 2025. But on this maintenance of effort deadline, you know, personally, I'm not as concerned about that. It's more the encumbrance by the June 30th, 2025. But I understand what you're talking about, not too much about these other agencies, especially the Department of Education. But if they got any money that they need to spend, you know, I'd be more than happy to accept it and, you know, help them along.
Well, these are all just ceilings that the Department of Budget and Finance needs to maintain to
Mhm.
ensure that we're complying with ARPA.
Mhm.
If you guys are ready to spend money and other departments are not, then it
Well,
would be good to know
Encumbrance
that.
is one thing, expenditures, you know, with progress payments and all that, that's another thing. So the,
Whatever the case may be.
yeah, whatever it is, the encumbrance, we'll take care of that. That ain't a problem. The expenditure is more, you know, something that, as long as we encumber it by the deadline you guys have imposed, and hopefully can revise and give us that extra year. Not extra, but the year under Act 279 would be, you know, we really appreciate it.
Well, let us all remember in 2023, in case the conversation arises in 2025, that the department was ready to go and needed to wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Senator. I think for the members too, I do want to just make clear that I did send a letter to the Attorney General seeking clarification on when the funds actually lapse. I think the last session when we were going through the omnibus bill, part of the situation was it was unclear because I think the Attorney General was telling us it was going to lapse at the end of 2024 unless we reauthorized it. I think when we talked to Ways and Means and Finance, that wasn't their understanding. So I think we are going to the Attorney General to seek some clarity. So as soon as we get that back, we will be sure to share that with the membership and the department to make sure that we're all on the same page and there is some clarity on where we're going next session.
Thank you.
I do want to ask real quick, so when are you hoping to get back all of your responses to that RFP by? What's the deadline currently?
Well, you want to talk about that? I know the back end is October. We just had a pre-conference discussion and meeting the other day, and then I guess the encumbrance as well as the responses, well, actually the responses to our request for proposal.
It's early part of July. I think it's July 7th.
Okay.
And we can get back to you on that.
And then you'll start
Exactly.
reviewing once after you receive it back on July 7th. Yeah.
Right, and then vetting them, like I said, some involve acquisition of lands, others involve a developer proposing to do X amount of lots then we got to take a look at their pro formas and make sure that, the costs make sense. As we did in that one project on the Big Island, the cost just didn't make sense. So instead of getting into a developer agreement with that particular entity, we decided to just acquire the land and buy it for $2 million. So we'll do the same thing with these other proposals. And those that involve just a sale of land, my feeling is that because of our entitlement status as a trust, I don't want to buy property that's necessarily entitled.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can buy ag lands and then get them entitled automatically by putting it in our inventory, so the cost is a lot more attractive, but make sure those lands are adjacent to existing infrastructure. So there's this analysis that we got to do. A good example is in Wailua on Kauai.
Mhm.
We have land there, but there's some adjacent lands that are in a flat area. So we were working with the landowner there to acquire that, working with the county. They want to relocate the sewer system onto our lands. We would then open up those lands for development. So there's this big analysis as well as the bigger picture rather than just acquiring lands that we have to do in order to make informed decisions. So.
What would be your definition of success of that RFP? Or I guess, better phrase it, what is your hope of how much you're going to encumber out of the RFP?
Well, right now the number is 2,700 with this strategic plan,
Okay.
and that's using our lands.
Right.
So if we're getting other lands, back in 1995 to 98, we expended about 164 million when I was a director, and we did 3,100 units. 600 million, 2,700 units, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we would like to not only, do a better job in the use of the 600 million, but we definitely going to do a hell of a lot more than 2,700 units based on our strategic plan. And the key to that is getting lands that already have infrastructure, lands or projects that have already been vetted and ready to go, but they need a little assistance in the use of our 600 million, as well as obviating or eliminating the entitlement process by putting the project into our inventory. So we have some projects where developers, for example, in Maui, they have an affordable housing requirement, and before they can move forward on their market units, and so we're raising our hand. We'll do that portion of your project, and it's master plan, it's design, it's good. They've got a working agreement with the county there. And so that's the kind of situation or opportunities, as I view it, that we want to take advantage of. And again, and thank to you as legislators, giving us the 600 million has increased our capacity to enter into those kind of situations and partnerships.
So what is your thought on when you go to the Gov next for your next release? Is it, what are you going to go in for? I know, you asked for the 172, which was in your strategic plan, which you released. I know you have a delta of 20 that you want probably sooner than later. But what do you think is the amount that you're going to ask for that next tranche of release?
I don't know until, I get a better handle on all the projects and the funding needs. So at this point, I'm not really prepared to tell you how much I'm going to ask for. I think when I have the projects more tied down and with certainty, and really, at that point, and that's going to take a while. Just like today. We just got so many projects, but I anticipate having a lot more projects. I mean, we've got 20 projects under the strategic plan. I hope to have at least maybe 35 projects by this time next year, where I can tell you, hey, this is how much you really need. Your $600 million, that's taken care of. We need more CIP. We need more, and expect us to access the rental housing revolving fund and some of these other funding sources. And it's an exciting time for our program. But then again, I got to perform.
Right.
I'm bringing on, and Mike, Stewart is talking about retirement. I got to twist his arm. I just gave him a raise, made him permanent head of the division. So hopefully I'll hang around a little longer. Got a couple other guys talking retirement, but I'm also talking on bringing on young guys that want to make hopefully the HHL a career. And so I got to deal with all these guys, as well as a 40% lack of employment on the 200 unit or 200 personnel that we got approved. So I got to fill that. So we're having a job fair this Saturday out at Kapolei. We've hopefully heard our advertisements on the radio. So trying to crank it out, but and we're excited. We're getting the job done, and hopefully you guys can see the results in the coming years.
So the 20 mil is really what we need released fairly soon.
Sure.
Right. Okay.
And
then
I'd like your guys' help on some of the legislation.
Absolutely.
The omnibus bill, that was a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing before I turn back to the members. I think when I was looking at the strategic plan that passed the commission, there was about 60 mil for assistance programs to address barriers to homeownership that the governor didn't release. He just released the 172. There was a request for 60 to come to 232. Is that still something you guys are interested in, or you're trying to funnel more of that money back into the development side?
I got to take a look at it. We met with Hawaiian Community Foundation. They're hired Hawaiian Community Lending. They've $750,000 they want us to match. So, there's these service providers that we're going to need. We're going to need their help to prep our beneficiaries on the waiting list to fill these units, as well as qualify for loan, as well as get the counseling to prepare to become homeowners and pay their mortgages and stuff. So, there's more to it than just development. There's a lot of service providers.
Yeah.
So we're, there's a bunch of things we're doing that it's beyond just vertical and infrastructure.
Okay.
And that's going to take money. So.
Okay. So maybe we'll follow up on that in our next meeting.
Please.
Right. Members, any other questions? Rep. Ward?
Thank you, Chair. A few quick questions. Kali, first, I forgot because we were moving so quickly. Congratulations upon your approval from the Senate.
Oh, thank you.
It's good to see a good senator here also. The first question is, according to a law that passed by Congress, all surplus lands are supposed to go to DHHL. Have you got any surplus lands that any departments or anywhere in the federal government have given you lands? Because we're talking about getting more lands other than your 203,000 inventory.
Well, we got that, what do you call it, Eva Beach lands.
The Kaleloa one?
Well, the Kaleloa, no, we haven't, but yeah, that's something we need to take a look at.
It's there, but it hasn't been enforced, is the impression I get from the Rod Perez Star Advertiser articles. Anyway, that's just one of the questions. The second thing is, has the commission approved all of this matrix, all these game plans? The commissioners are all on board with you. So this is not where you got to go get a Mother May I in addition.
No, I think the commission has approved this matrix. Yeah, it's all
Share it
approved.
with the commission.
Okay, so it's
It's
approved.
approved.
And then the other one, in answer to my question about how many people are going to be off the wait list, it looks like you're going to take a couple thousand off of this wait list for about 1/3 of the budget as it was initially discussed. So in effect, the $600 million is going to take 6,000 people off the wait list. Is that generally a ballpark? estimation?
Oh, man, you're putting some pressure on me, but.
Well, I mean, I'm doing the math, what I heard earlier, that we got 2,000 coming off out of 1/3 of the 600 million.
Actually, I'd like to take more than that.
Okay, I would say if you're
Representative
encouraged to
Ward.
do that. And the last thing is more of a statement that, we're playing catch-up, not capping and kind of like putting one of your arms behind your back. Doesn't this deserve a emergency proclamation, or would that not be useful to you?
I agree with you.
So it's a matter of political will then, because you need as much wind at your back as possible to get this.
No, I agree with you, and I think we have a governor that is receptive to that idea. So, in very shortly, you'll
Okay, I hope you'll keep this.
have a
committee or
response to
whatever
that
we
question
are.
that I think you might appreciate.
Keep us apprised of that, please. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Rep Holt, go ahead.
I guess to follow up on that, what are the things that would be needed or included in this emergency proclamation? And would we be able to take care of it in legislation next year?
And probably the environmentalists probably not gonna like what I have to say, but this environmental assessment and process can be very, time-consuming, and not to, as well as the SHPD review regarding archaeological sites and all of that. But I can assure you that while we might want that particular review process, especially if we do in affordable housing, those are the kind of things that can really delay projects. So to the extent that we can not necessarily avoid, but not be delayed in a major way by having to go through that, that me as a developer can appreciate that. I've had projects that have basically died because of it, because of the delays. The permitting, that's another one. We're meeting with the mayors and as well as some other individuals concerning the permitting process. That can kill your projects in a heartbeat. And so we need to be a little bit more aggressive in the permitting process. Granted, we don't want to necessarily ignore the counties, but I also don't want to be the victim of a lack of staff as well as these onerous ordinances that, as well as delays that are caused by all the divisions you got to go through and get approval. That doesn't work for me as a developer or the department. So we're looking at ways to not eliminate, but make it more streamlined. And the omnibus bill that you guys are talking about, that helps. Some of the entitlements we don't have to deal with that automatically be taken care of.
Well, thank you. We look forward to helping you with that. And I just, as my colleague from Hawaii Kai said, we're playing catch up, and we're not trying to avoid these kind of regulations, but we do want to expedite it to get our people back on the land, 100 years later. So thank you.
Yeah, and I have to agree. We are in an emergency situation. You got the Kalima case as a very good example of the consequences of the delays in awards, where people are dying on our wait lists. A third of the guys that won an award under the Kalima case have died. So not only is it a situation that needs immediate attention, but you also look at the homeless. A third of the homeless are Hawaiians, and that obviously isn't good. And you got the health issues, you got the employment issues, you got I think communities that are fed up with all the homeless situations. So let's fix it. House the Hawaiians. That's a major part of the problem. That if we fix that, that will address a very large segment of the community that a lot of people view as a problem. That shouldn't be the case. It should be a resource. So we educate them, we put them in good jobs, put them in good housing, then that would be part of the solution.
Chair, could I follow up on that?
Go ahead, Rep. One.
Did you say earlier that 40% of your staff positions are vacant?
Yes.
That's double what we heard from other departments in the finance committee. It was like 20, 25%. What, people don't want to work for DHHL, or what's going on?
I don't know. We're looking for people to come work for us.
Are you paying no wages, or, you've got a different system going on? 40% is huge. That's almost half of your guys.
Well, I'd like to talk to you after this, so we'll see,
Okay,
you know, if
but
we
I
can
would
get people on board to help us. Like I said, we're having a job fair on on Saturday. Anybody interested, we have all these jobs listed on our website, dhhl.org. Hit the tab, jobs, and they'll give you a list. You can submit an application. Come down to the department, give me a call, send me your resume. We're looking for workers. You know, we're actually trying to recruit some of the staff here at the legislature. And so we're going to have a couple of these guys
pinching a few
join-
people.
moving over to us. So even at the legislative level.
Because to be as efficient as you can, you gotta have as much of
Yeah, we
a
gotta
full
get
team.
that.
You gotta have your team.
Yeah, that's why hope this guy doesn't retire anytime
Mr.
soon.
Matsunaga, the ball is in your court to stay the course, sir.
All right, Rep. Tarnas, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of the proposals that didn't make the cut here. You put out RFP in November 2022. 7 offers were under review. You've accepted 4 of them, which you've described, A, B, C, D. One of them that was, I think, under consideration, Proposal E on Oahu, the Waialua Mill Camp Development Group LLC. It's no longer on your list. Is that just not moving forward, or what is that status of that one?
We are revisiting that one. We need, I think, to take another look at some of the proposal elements, and so we're gonna discuss with Chair on that, and so it may come back, but it would be in the next fiscal year. So this just reflects this fiscal year.
Okay.
Right.
And then, real quick, other question. It's not on this list here, but it's certainly, folks in my district are all chomping at the bit, is both the Pu'ukapu and the Lalomilo housing developments there. We just had a meeting last week with the Corps of Engineers with their update on
Yeah,
UXO
right.
removal. They say they're getting close. Lalomilo, should get a
it's
full
moving,
clearance.
yeah.
No action, no further action letter should be forthcoming apparently on the Lalomilo project.
Yeah, you got our letter, or I sent you a letter with the update, so yeah, that's real close.
Yeah.
And that's a priority. You know, not only that one, including, we're doing an inventory of all these vacant lots that, you know, are just sitting there and haven't been awarded, and some of them have houses that are deteriorating, and I put the blame on the department. So we're kind of doing a full court press, getting the master inventory lists updated. We're having staff go out and actually visit all the different lots and identify those that maybe aren't on the list. And then what we're going to do is maybe as an example, on Molokai, we've got 20 vacant lots in Ho'olehua that we're going to award. Well, what I'm going to do is throw in all these other vacant lots on there, and then just do a master award of all these different vacant lots. But more importantly, get a developer on board, put out an RFQ. So we have a developer that will help, rather than just giving the lots and say, you know, good luck, have a developer that will have some models. Hey, which one would you like? Okay, well, you need to, if you do it yourself, you got to go get your permits, you got to figure out which contractor, all that. That's very unfair. And I think if we can facilitate an approach with the assistance of a developer that has the resources as well as the models that might fit the next person on the waiting list. Like you might have an elderly couple that doesn't want a 4-bedroom. Okay, well, we got this model in this lot. It's a 2-bedroom, it's a rehab, and you know the monthly is going to be very reasonable. Okay, we'll give you that one. And then just go down the list as well as the different lots that are available, including the vacant lots, but do it in a way that will help facilitate our beneficiaries in actually building a house, not just being given a task that in a lot of cases insurmountable. Not to say that maybe we do some habitat approaches. We'll set aside a few for the owner builders that have the resources, they can build their own, but in a lot of cases I anticipate we need to help them. So that's where we partner with developers to make it worth their while. We give them enough numbers where the numbers work for them versus 1, 2, 3 lots. A developer, he's not going to do the deal. We give them 60 or 70 lots. Then it makes sense for a developer to jump in and help.
Okay, thanks. Senator, you have anything else? Okay.
One last question.
All right, Rep. Ward, go ahead.
Time frame. when will all of this transpire? I know there were things that were set out, will be done. When will this chapter fold, and then the 1,953 will be done, and then another one comes? Is this a 1 year, 16 months, 2 years, or what's the?
Well, I guess what's helpful is the status, and as you can see, there's all these different scenarios regarding the different projects. So, not everything's going to finish one time. It depends, some have environmental issues, so we got to do a EA and, what have you. Others, we got to put in the water before we can really, I would say that the best way to answer your question is to be project-specific, and then we can tell you what the status is. But overall, we got a certain deadline where we got to encumber the funds. As to what the net results of actually getting it constructed and finished with people in there, obviously a lot of them is going to be past that June 30th, 2025, but we're going to get the project started, or in some cases completed by that deadline. But as to a specific, when are you going to get it finished, I'd have to defer to our, status reports on the individual projects.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I think, we've made a lot of progress in a very short period of time. I think we will continue working with you to hopefully figure this all out and continue pushing to, get these projects to fruition. But, I think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a partnership, and we'll try and, assist you as the next legislative session comes up. But I think that's what we just need to keep on doing, is checking in on the progress. And I think
Not a
you've done a
problem.
very
Thank
good job with that. So we'll continue to stay in touch, and I think we'll have probably another meeting within the next 2 months or so, and maybe we'll get a better feel of what the RFP is looking like at that point. And then maybe we'll get a full presentation once you know what that RFP is fully looking like, because I think that's fully what the next phase of all of
think
this
so.
is. All right,
Okay.
with no further business, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.